stage fright? I am.
All right. Just talk about
No,
anything you want. How about when you met Evelyn, or
I'll remember the days that I used to live in the neighborhood of Harrison and St. Louis. That's where the Congress Expressway is now, or Eisenhower
Yeah.
Expressway.
Yeah.
Well, I lived there with Don and the Lehmans, you know, on the second floor. And then I joined the Navy, and I was up at Great Lakes, and on occasion I would come into town, you know, when I get liberty, which is the same as a pass, you know, in the Army. And I would come directly, I didn't have any place else to go, so I would come directly to Lehman's house. Don was still there, Andy was still there. And there was a tavern on 5th Avenue in St. Louis called Joe's Tap. And once in a while I'd bring another sailor with me or something like that. And that was the nearby tavern. It was the closest one. It was about a block and a half away, so we'd stop in there. And on weekends, they would have 26 girls, which is a dice game where you play for drinks. You don't play for money. Well, it cost 25 cents, and I forget exactly how the rules were. But I met a girl in there who was a 26 girl. Well, I was playing 26. Turned out to be your mother.
What year was this?
It was 1949.
Okay.
And so she would get a break about every hour or so, you know, from her 26 duties. And because she worked there to supplement her income, she worked at the American Decal. And she had to pay for room and board and all this and that. So she supplemented her income. She probably made about $30 to $40 a night there, which was a lot of money.
It's a lot of money
those
back
days.
then.
Yeah. Because she got a percentage of the take. But it was only for drinks. You only shake for drinks. No money was involved at all. And anyway, during the course of one evening, I asked her if when you get a break, do you mind if I buy you a drink? And she agreed, and she sat down with me at the bar, and we started talking, and turned out to be your mother, and it went from there.
What was her personality like back then?
Very pleasant, you know, and very easy to get along with, smiling, and just very nice to talk to. She did have a nice personality when she turned the smiles on. Anyway, that was the first time, and I had come in probably several times later, you know, during the following months, and do the same thing. And she took to me, and I took to her. And so then I started writing her letters, and I fell for her. And of course, you've seen some of the letters that I wrote her, and she kept them. And that's the way it turned out. So eventually we got married, and that's it. But,
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool the way you met her. I never knew that.
yep, that was the way.
Yeah. And she kept those letters. How many years?
Well, all these years.
Yeah.
60
over
years.
60 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. You know, all the different places you guys lived.
she wrote me letters back too, but I never kept them. I don't know what I did with them. I probably stuck them in my foot locker someplace and they got lost.
Mm-hmm.
Or duffel bag, they had duffel bags then in the Navy.
It was neat reading the letters together with you when
Yeah,
I was staying with you in Arkansas, because you see parts of your parents that you never knew about before, like the funny parts, you know, like little tricks you were playing on your Navy buddies, and you know, just that you were always longing to be with her, and things seemed better when you guys were together.
yeah,
So,
it was. It was very, very good to be with her.
yeah. And we're missing her this year, but we know she's in a better place. She would have been
Oh, let's
having a
hope
rough
so.
go of it.
Yeah,
How long was the courtship before you got married?
probably a year. And I said, okay, let's get married. And she agreed.
Okay.
And I says, okay, let's get married. And she says, fine. So I borrowed a friend's car from the Navy, and I went and picked her up at where she worked, at American Decal, in the middle of the day. Just pulled her out of work.
That's cool.
And I had my uniform on, and she told the boss that she had to go take care of some serious business,
Mm-hmm.
and they let her off.
See, I never heard this either.
And so I said, okay, she came downstairs, and she jumped in the car, and we went down to City Hall and got married. We got all the license and everything else in one spot, one time.
Really? You can't do that anymore.
We did it.
Yeah. What is it like at City Hall down there? Is it a big office or just a
Oh,
little?
they had judges all over the room.
Oh, they did.
Rooms.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rooms all over the place with a judge here and a judge there for every purpose you can think of.
Yeah. Did you have to bring a witness with?
They were there.
Who was there?
Secretary.
The secretary was there, so you didn't bring Grandma Link or anybody? No.
We didn't need
Yeah.
none.
Yeah.
All you needed was the paper from the judge.
Yeah, and you were
Marriage
both old
certificate.
enough.
So were you all dressed up, gussied up, or did you just?
Well, I had my uniform on, I had a white sailor suit, that's a dress suit. And that was it.
I wish you guys would have taken a picture.
We weren't into pictures at that
Yeah, I
time.
guess not. I didn't have a camera. I didn't have much money at all.
Yeah, well, when you rush out to get married by a judge, you don't take a camera with
But
you.
I think it's cool that you went to work and picked her up, and it almost sounds like officer and a gentleman. You know how
Yeah.
Well, I did.
it'd be more dramatic if you'd say you picked her up and carried her out, though.
No, she came down the stairs, she had dressed up a little.
A little more.
Yeah, she had her high heels on and all that, and the hairdo, and nice dress. And,
Yeah.
well, that was nice.
So what'd you do afterwards? Did you go to
Well,
dinner or anything?
Yeah, McDonald's.
There was no McDonald's back then.
I don't remember really. But I think we went out to eat. And probably went back to Joe's Tap,
That's what I was gonna say.
and I don't exactly remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm sure we had a few drinks
Mm-hmm.
because I had the weekend off and she had time off.
Yeah. Now, how long did you stay in the Navy in the early years when you guys first got married?
Well, I stayed until 43.
No, 53.
53.
53.
I went in 49 and I stayed until 53.
Mm-hmm.
And Harry Truman tacked a year on for the Korean War,
Mm.
so I had to stay an extra year.
Hmm.
because I had enlisted for 3 and I got out in 4.
And then your career as a policeman started right after that, or did you work
No.
elsewhere?
No, when I was in the Navy, I went to school to be an electrician. And they gave me the basic trainings up at Great Lakes. So I was stationed there quite a long time. So as a result, I was back and forth to Chicago all the time. And whenever I would get liberty again. And so I was there another 4 months after I got out of boot camp. I went to school. And after that, the Navy, this was after the war, the Navy had ships stationed in Orange, Texas. They were in mothballs in the war,
Yeah.
and they would just kept them for in case of need. And they brought half a dozen of them up into the Great Lakes area at Monroe Street Harbor. And they parked them there. And after I got out of electrician school, I stayed on the base, and a bunch of us had to stay on the base that went to electrician school, and we couldn't understand why they were keeping us there, you know. And it turned out that, well, anyway, while we were on the base, we were going around picking up cigarette butts and all that stuff. That was the things they had us do. You know, and we're trying to figure out what the hell they sent us to school for up there and keeping us here, you know. So this just went on and on. It was about 4 more months, I think. And finally they brought them ships up that we were unaware of. They brought them down around the East Coast, up the St. Lawrence River and down the St. Lawrence Seaway,
Yeah.
and took them into the Great Lakes and parked them at Monroe Street Harbor.
Oh.
And there was 4 of them at that point.
Wow.
And finally one day we got orders to go to these ships, and we got to these ships in Monroe Street Harbor where we were transferred, and they were a mess, complete mess. They were all rusted up, and just from sitting in Orange, Texas, sitting in seawater. So they made us clean them up and chip paint and repaint them and all this.
Oh
And
my gosh.
all the equipment had to be overhauled. They had guys out of school that were engine men or mechanics, we'd call them, and they had to overhaul the engines. They had to take them all apart, rebuild them, and generators, all of that stuff they had to rebuild. And the electricians had to rebuild the switchboards, and they were enormous switchboards. And we'd take them apart and put them back together. Of course, we had supervision, you know, and we got that done. And that all during this time that we were working on those ships, I was still in that we slept on the ship.
Yeah.
So we're stationed in Chicago.
So they just had you stay on the same ship you were working on?
Yes,
Oh.
they had ships, cruise quarters.
Yeah.
And they had a cook on a galley where they served, you know, mess hall and all that on each of the ships. And that's the way that was, so. And then meanwhile, your mother had to find a place to stay. And you remember the projects, don't you?
Yep.
4th floor.
Yep.
Well, she finagled an apartment, one of the projects, and she of course, had reasons to do it because I was in no condition to put her on a shift that would
Right, yeah.
So, actually, the apartment she got was rather nice. I don't know if you remember it or not, but
Well, they used to be very nice places to
Yeah.
live. Yeah.
there were 4 or 5 rooms. And the only thing was we had to climb 4 flights of stairs,
Yeah.
but she stayed there.
And then you got your typical leaves and stuff, huh? So you could go see her.
Well, I didn't have to. Sometimes it was only a streetcar jaunt away,
Oh, that's true.
you know.
Yeah. Forgot about streetcars.
And- But most of the time they're required you to stay aboard ship. And when I get my weekends off, I just come home.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way that marriage started. So, at least I didn't have to go overseas and get blown up.
That's true. Yeah. That Korean conflict lasted for a number of years.
A lot of guys had it rough over there. They froze to death, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. So do you remember much about when we were each born? Like when Laura was born and I
How
was
about your
born?
first house? When did that come?
That came when Chris was born.
Oh, okay.
After
So you
Chris
went-
was born.
Right.
We were in apartments up till then.
Yeah, we lived on Wolfram Street, and that was an old frame building, a 2-story apartment building. And then finally we got enough money to buy that place on Magnolia. But I got out in '53, and we moved from one rental place to another. First we stayed in Wolfram. No, we didn't move.
And we were in the projects and then we moved to Wolfram, right? Or was there
Yes.
someplace in between?
Yes. And then we stayed there for, we were there quite a while. About a year or so. And I think Christine was born,
Yeah, she was born while we lived there.
yeah.
'Cause I remember seeing pictures of Uncle Steve and Aunt Doris holding her, and that
Yeah.
was in the living room there. She was born.
It was a nice big apartment.
Yeah, it was big.
And then we bought the place on Magnolia where the big lot was. Big double lot,
Mm-hmm. All the fruit trees.
yeah. And a house sitting on the back of the lot,
Mm-hmm.
and the garage next door to it,
And the shed.
yeah. And then I built the
Patio.
patio. And Don helped me pour that concrete that was up there.
Mm-hmm.
And he came over one day and we formed it out. It was pretty big.
It was big. You guys spent a long time doing that.
Yeah. And he was driving a cement truck at the time, I believe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, he did for a while.
Huh.
I don't know if he was still doing it at the time, but anyway, after we got it formed out, he came back a few days later and we poured it and finished it. And it turned out pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But on the one corner of the patio, I put 4-inch round steel posts on 4 corners. And my intention was to build a roof and a fence around the enclosure and use the posts for base, you know. And I did that. And I built a fence around that was louvered.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
All the boards were like that, so you could almost see through them and you get a lot of air. Worked good in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
And then I built a roof over that, and that was worked all right.
Yeah, we liked it. It was a nice little covered patio area.
Yeah.
We had our picnic table under there
Yeah,
and an extra refrigerator.
yeah, that red one.
Yeah.
And I used to keep it stocked with beer. And all of a sudden, when you could come in the back gate, there was a gangway, and we had a gate that bordered the house and the patio. So somebody came in there one night and cleaned out my refrigerator. And I think it was Ray's buddies, because they're the only ones that knew it was there. And what's his name? Was it Wagner or Winterberg had his own apartment?
Jack Winterberg?
One of them. I think it was Winterberg. He had his own apartment close by. He was only 16 years old at the time.
Really?
Yeah. And because Ray bragged to me later how they used to get together and have parties, you know, at
Yeah.
this apartment.
Yeah.
Christ only knows what went on there. But
He's still a funny guy.
Winterberg,
Yeah.
I haven't seen him.
I saw him maybe about 5 years ago out by Terry.
Oh,
Well, probably the last time we saw him was when we had Ray's funeral. And then she had the gathering back at her house.
well, he ran around with a bunch of guys from the neighborhood.
Yeah.
They used to be in the back of the building by the candy, where the candy factory was later built.
Yeah.
Used to go out there and play ball. Fast pitch. And they could really wing that ball after they got enough practice.
Yeah, they played a lot of ball back there.
Yeah. And we went down to the Buffalo River one time, and Ray was with us, and we were seeing who could throw the ball furthest across the river.
The rock or the ball?
The ball.
The ball.
No, rock.
It was rocks, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I figured I could throw harder than Ray because I was a lot bigger and a lot stronger and all that. Shit, I threw a rock and I landed about 6 feet short of the other shore, and it was a long span. And Ray said, "Oh, I can do better than that." And I said, bullshit. He picked up a big rock and he winged that sucker, and it went about 50 feet further than what I did. And I said, "What?" But he had a good arm.
He did have a good arm. I used to watch him play fast pitch. They loved to play fast pitch.
Yeah.
And they loved to play hockey in the
Yeah.
wintertime. And basketball, they were always playing basketball out in the back.
Yeah. And then he had Roger the Lodger and
Yeah.
Winterberg and Wagner. Roger the Lodger, he was something else.
Well, you know, Roger looked very much like Elvis Presley. And Gabby next door, the big fat German girl,
Yes.
she tried to get him to come to her birthday party one year so she could have all her friends
Really?
believe it was Elvis Presley. And he did look a lot like Elvis.
Well, he was
a
tall.
little fatter in the face, but
Yeah.
you know, in Elvis's older years, he definitely would have been a match.
He was pretty tall.
He was tall, yeah. He had the blackest hair.
Yeah.
He was very handsome. I always thought Roger was very good looking. And he married this little pipsqueak of a girl, Peggy. Was that Wagner's sister, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
Yeah. Was it Wagner's sister?
But I remember they had a party up at Ray's house in Milwaukee one time. And they were all invited, of course, Wagner and Roger and Winterberg, they all showed up. And Roger had brought a jug of wine with him. And he started drinking that. And he really got whacked out on this.
They would all get plastered.
And well, Ray had everything you can imagine to drink in the Raj Mahal.
His garage mahal.
But Roger tried to get me to drink some of that wine. And I said, I don't want no wine, because I was drinking beer. And he had some kind of cheap wine, I don't know what the hell it was. But I don't want none of that crap. And he kept bugging me, and he actually started getting mad when I wouldn't drink any of it.
Maybe he made it or something.
I don't know.
There was a time there when they had these wine kits out on the market and people were making wine.
I don't remember Roger's last name. What was it?
Um,
I always called him Roger the Lodger.
what was Roger's last name?
But he was a neighborhood
I
kid.
think his last name was Roger. His first name was, we called him Roger, we called him by his last name. Peggy was his sister.
I don't
I was getting that mixed up. I forget who Roger married. What was Roger's first name? I think it was Roland.
Roland?
Roland Rogers.
Roland Roger?
Roland Rogers, that's what it was.
Hmm.
He never liked his first name, so everybody always called him Roger.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I have to double check it with Chris and Laura, but I'm sure that's what it was.
Okay, let me pause here for a second so I can